Who was Josiah Stoll, and what did he witness when it came to the Book of Mormon? Stoll was a rich landowner in New York and a Presbyterian deacon, and probably one of the first people to physically hold the alleged golden plates. But before we go any further, I'm a Mormon skeptic, so my bias might seep through, and also my sources are in the description. Josiah Stoll was super important in Joseph Smith's life. He helped him in early money digging phases, sometimes financed him, and even defended him in court. Research points to a handful of core legal documents, trial notes, and letters that make up Josiah Stoll's complete historical record. To really get Stoll, we have to drop the stereotype that Joseph Smith only fooled poor or uneducated people. Josiah Stoll was loaded, but the guy had a major obsession with finding buried Spanish silver. In 1825, Stoll traveled like 100 miles just to hire a teenage Joseph Smith because he heard Smith could see invisible things. Stoll funded a whole treasure dig and signed a literal contract for Joseph to find the mine using a seer stone. And the crew stayed at a guy named Isaac Hale's house, which is exactly how he met his future wife, Emma. The dig was a total bust, and they surprisingly didn't find anything. But Stoll didn't think it was a scam. Joseph told him the treasure had an enchantment on it, and this hidden treasure just fell deeper into the earth, which is why they couldn't find it. And Stoll completely bought it. But Stoll's family was furious that he was wasting his money, so his nephew actually had Joseph Smith arrested in 1826 for being a con man. But Stoll took the stand as the star witness for Joseph's defense. He testified that they found a tail feather in the dirt, which to him proved the money was there, but just sank deeper due to magic. And when the judge asked if he really believed Smith could see underground, Stoll flat out defied his family and claimed he positively knew Joseph could. Fast forward to September 1827. Stoll was visiting the Smith family right when Joseph was getting the plates. While running from people trying to steal them, Joseph passed a heavy bundle wrapped in a linen frock through a window to safety, and Stoll was standing right there. He claimed he was the very first person to physically receive them, and he actually gave dimensions for it. But his biggest bombshell dropped 3 years later during another trial in the 1830s. Joseph was facing legal charges again, and Stoll took the stand to defend him. Under oath, Stoll admitted that when Joseph handed him the bundle at the window, the cloth shifted a bit and he caught a quick glimpse of a corner, which he said, in court, by the way, looked like a green stone. So while other witnesses described the plates as having the appearance of gold, Stoll, swearing they look like a green stone, is a bizarre, highly specific detail that totally changes how we view the physical artifact, especially when we compare it to what other witnesses said about them. But what about the arguments? For apologists, Stoll's greenish cast quote is actually the strongest physical proof for the plates, because if the plates were solid gold, they'd weigh like 200 pounds, making it physically impossible for Joseph to run with them. But if they were made of an ancient gold copper alloy called tumbaga, they'd weigh around 40 to 60 pounds, which matches what witnesses said. And copper oxidizes over time and turns green, which explains why it would have looked green. Plus, they also say he wasn't some gullible bimbo. He was a smart, wealthy businessman. And while Joseph was over 100 miles away, Stoll had him look into a seer stone, and Joseph perfectly described Stoll's property and painted trees. Joseph strictly forbade anyone from looking at the plates. If he was just carrying a literal rock in a cloth, he wouldn't have handed it directly to a guy who could have just easily lifted the rock and exposed the entire fraud. Stoll stayed a faithful believer until his death. Even his non-Mormon son defended Joseph's early character. But skeptics look at Stoll and just see early Mormonism's deep roots and superstitious folk magic. First, they point out his wild 1826 testimony. If a grown man finds a massive dig, finds absolutely nothing but a single feather, and logically concludes that the money just slipped deeper because of magic, his grip on reality is pretty flawed. Also, affidavits from neighbors talk about Joseph making animal sacrifices to appease guarding demons. Skeptics also don't buy the remote viewing test. Stoll was a rich, well-known guy, so Joseph could have easily just heard about his property through the grapevine beforehand. Skeptics also point to an 1830 trial where another guy tested Joseph by hiding a bag of grain, and Joseph completely failed to find it and literally tried to bribe the guy's brother 50 cents just to tell him where it was. And then Stoll explicitly said the green thing under the cloth looked like a stone. So the simplest answer is that it probably could have been a stone. Joseph probably just wrapped up a heavy green rock or some scrap copper or like basically any other prop to fake the weight of a book. And Joseph forbidding people from looking under the cloth to keep people from seeing his fake prop was just to hide his lie. But always check the sources and decide for yourself. But personally, I don't believe the Book of Mormon is legit, and Stoll's story just screams folk magic to me. To be fair, the Green Tumbaga metal theory is actually pretty clever, and I really do think Stoll was an honest guy telling the truth about what he thought he experienced. But his worldview was just built on pure superstition. And I mean, the guy swore under oath that he positively knew Joseph could see invisible treasure when they literally only found a feather in the dirt. So to me, Stoll just proves Joseph used the exact same seer stone and tricks for the plates that he used for his failed treasure digs. And since Stoll already believed in magic stones and slippery treasures, he was the perfect mark for Joseph's pivot to the Golden Bible. Now, Stoll's testimony definitely proves Joseph had a heavy physical prop hidden underneath that cloth. But in my opinion, there's enough reasonable doubt to assume it's not actually golden plates. And that remote viewing test is super weak evidence because Joseph literally lived and worked with Stoll, so he easily could have memorized the farm's layout beforehand or just given vague guesses. Maybe there is some credibility to the superstition, but personally, I think there's enough reasonable doubt to deny that. But if you think there's anything I missed or anything I got wrong, or even if you just have general thoughts on Josiah Stoll, let me know in the comments below. But it's been real, it's been fun, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye!